Hello, it's Nicko with Food Cravings, and today we're making Cacio e Pepe. While this is a classic Roman pasta dish rooted in antiquity, I did some digging and here's what I found. Cacio e Pepe is a pasta dish from Roman cuisine. The name Cacio e Pepe alludes to, quote, cheese and pepper. As the name suggests, the ingredients of the dish are very simple and include only black pepper, cheese, and pasta, specifically pecorino romano. And I'm going to show you my take on what many have called the ultimate Cacio e Pepe. Let's get started. First, we'll need some freshly cracked black pepper, along with some coarse salt. And for now, we'll set these aside. Next, what we'll do is move on to our main ingredient. Yup, you guessed it, pecorino, along with some parmesan or parmigiano reggiano, freshly grated of course. And now we'll transfer our cheeses into a separate bowl. First the pecorino, then the reggiano. Next, what we'll do is bring our water to a boil and dump in the pasta. This time I'm using bucatini because fortunately that's what I had on hand. While our pasta starts to boil again, I'm going to take a moment to talk to you a little bit about the process of how to make cacio e pepe. But first, I just drizzled in some olive oil and gave it a stir. When preparing the dish, some of the hot cooking water is left or added with the pasta. Then the heat melts the cheese while the starch in the water helps bind the cheese to the pasta. And now, in a separate pot, we'll throw down some black pepper. And of course, a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. And what this will do is help act as a buffer zone to prevent the butter from burning. Now, let's check on our pasta. And just by observing, along with giving it a few stirs, I was able to tell that this needed a few more minutes. And as you too will realize, experience pays off. Moving on from this steamy situation, it was time to drop in the butter. And so I did, and it was time to give this a stir. So I used my trusty wooden spoon to get the job done. And as this was melting, I realized I didn't need to do anything to it, so I just let it melt away gradually. Next, it was time to make the sauce, and what this entails is a gradual emulsion of pasta starch water. Here I grabbed a ladleful as I prepared myself to make magic. See? And in a few moments, I was about to make a splash of epic proportion as the starch water bubbled away. And with that simmering down finally, it was time to strain the pasta. So I busted out with my colander. Next, I took out some of the pasta and transferred it into the pot. Here I grabbed some more of the bucatini. Once all the pasta was transferred, it was time to make the cheese sauce. But first, I caught a few extra strands, so I added them in. And by the looks of it, right about now, things were getting a little hot and steamy as I came down with some coarse salt and prepped the cheese. So I started in with a gradual drizzle of that starch water as I whisked away the cheese to melt gradually and form the cheese sauce. Here, if you pay close attention, you could already see everything coming together. That's what we're looking for, a smooth, coagulated, starch water-based cheese sauce. The only thing I will tell you, and this is kind of like an advisory more than a pro tip, is that this requires lots of work. You're gonna have to use some elbow grease for this part, which is why I continued mixing like a cyclone. And although this mixture may seem rather clumpy, don't worry, everything will start coming together gradually. And it was at this point that I brought in the pasta and kept it moving. Then dumped in the cheese emulsion. The reason why we added the butter and olive oil in the beginning is so that we can provide the cheese a buffer zone. Already when cheese starts melting, it becomes very sticky and hard to work with. So in making the sauce for this, it's very important to keep things moving very quickly. So naturally, as you can see, I tossed and turned the heck out of this until I buttered up all the sides, twisted the pasta around and around in every which way. I mean, in a way, I kind of felt like a type of Kitchen Action Jackson or something. And here you'll notice part of the butter and cheese emulsion with the pepper getting extra creamy, I was about to add this onto the pasta for an extra coating, but instead I added some more of the pasta to the pot and began stirring again, round and around, and I found that by doing it this way, little by little in layers, it all gets incorporated easily, and by now, you know what time it is. It was time to plate up! At which point in time, some pasta started showing up in my plate in a flash! And by now I was ready to go in for a taste, but instead, I had to stop and admire what I had just made. I mean, it was one of the most delicious looking pasta dishes ever! And right about here, the forecast called for some heavy rain of cheese, that is. As I went in for a taste, I was greeted by slight peppery notes and that pecorino bite, the saltiness of the cheese and the creaminess of the emulsion with the butter, and the pasta was cooked perfectly al dente, all made for a flavor bomb that simply couldn't be beat. Now that you've learned how to make Cacio e Pepe, it's your chance to dazzle your friends and family members at home with this easy yet simple Roman pasta dish. I hope you've enjoyed my take on what I call the best cacio e pepe recipe ever. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share this recipe with your family and friends. For ingredient amount and more info, please visit www.chefnicko.blogspot.com. Bon appetit, enjoy, and I'll see you in the next video recipe.